Hello and welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're going to be discussing the amazing Spider-Man Blu-ray. Yes, today we're doing another Blu-ray review, because if you know what I'm doing now, I'm doing a lot more Blu-ray reviews, and this is the one that I watched today, and I decided to do it because I'd not long picked it up, because as you can see, 2-disc version, you do get a lot of like added extras, but because it's an old Blu-ray, and I bought it second hand from CEX. Yeah, you don't get any of the added stuff, like you can download the movie onto other programs or things like that. So let's get into this Blu-ray review. So surprisingly, I do have this on DVD, and I've used that DVD and my Blu-ray player, which, you know, upscales these older movies or DVDs up into 1080p and things. But the quality difference between them is just fucking stagnant. Like, you can tell from a mile off which one's better, and it's this one. Because you can tell it's so much more clearer, it doesn't have any issues from, you know, having to be upscaled, so it looks a lot better in that regard. Also, going forward, when it comes to this version compared to that one, obviously that one wasn't a double disc edition, this one is, so it's got a bunch of special features that we can dive into later on in the video. But as of right now, let's get right back into the topic at hand. So, The Amazing Spider-Man movie is the second trilogy of Spider-Man movies. You know, the first one was Tobey Maguire's, and this is Andrew Garfield's. Everybody has a general consensus of the second one of this one is really fucking bad. And I'm not gonna lie, I am one of those people too. Like, it's a guilty pleasure, it's fun to watch, it's a fun movie to watch. But as a Spider-Man movie, quite a bad movie, not gonna lie. But also, when we're talking about this one specifically, at least, watching the bonus features did give me more of an insight of what they were going for, because I remember watching this when it first came out in the cinema when I was quite a young child. And actually, when did this come out actually? Like 2012 or something? I can't remember. But I do remember going to see it in the cinema when I was a kid. So I did grow up with this one, but I did grow up with Tobey's because I saw Tobey's first, technically speaking. So, but the one thing that caught my eye about this one specifically was that they made him more of an outcast, they made him more of a edgelord, as you would say, but once looking into the bonus features that we'll touch upon later on, it's more understandable. So in this version of Spider-Man, Spider-Man is, or Peter Parker, sorry, is more of an outcast than he is actually a nerdy geeky type, because it's more modernized in that sense. It's been modernized a lot. And obviously, the storyline follows, obviously, Peter from a young boy after his parents just magically vanish, and then it goes to him growing up with his Aunt May and his uncle, and it shows you that he's getting bullied, it shows that he's sticking up for people. The one thing that I always found weird about this version of Peter Parker is, why does he have a skateboard? Like, don't get me wrong, I love skateboarding, I'm a skateboarding person, like, I've always loved skateboarding, but Peter Parker never struck me as a skateboarding type. Like, yeah, he's quick-witted and he's got some good comebacks, but when it comes to actually looking at the character of Peter Parker, why is he skateboarding? I shall never know. One other interesting thing that I noticed during the watch through of this is, when you watch older movies, or like movies that you watched as a kid, and then you pick up on things that you didn't pick up on because you were young. And one of the things I noticed I picked up on is that, like a lot of the older Batman movies, there was a lot of sexual undertones. Like, Uncle Ben teasing Gwen, saying that he's got a picture, Peter's got a picture of her on his computer, and then he goes, yeah, I was just doing stuff to touch it, I was just touching some stuff up, and she's like, oh, and I'm like, oh, whoa, 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 and if you know, you know, because I can't really say it because of YouTube guidelines, but if you know what they're implying, then yeah. And throughout the entire movie, Gwen just gives him the equivalent of Ted 2. If you've seen Ted 2 and you know the scene where, you know, Ted and, you know, who are sitting in the diner, and he says, that girl's giving you a certain eye. Well, yeah, like, Emma Stone and Andrew Garfield were definitely giving Major them eyes the entire time they were on screen together, which was good for the chemistry. And one of the things I did like about this is that you got to see a different version of Spider-Man. It's a Spider-Man that's coming into it, so then people are not sure who he is. He's a vigilante at first. Even the police are trying to get him because they don't know who they are, like, why he's doing the things that he's doing. And one of the Best parts of this movie, I would say, is at the end of it, where all of New York come together to support this new superhero to get him to the Oscorp building in time before the lizard sets off this deadly toxin. And the thing that I found funny about this movie is that rewatching it now, I like it a lot more than I remembered liking it back in the day. And that was because back then I was still a kid, and obviously I still like Toby's movies, and obviously I wasn't really focusing on it like in that regard at that point in time. But when it comes to this specific story, I actually really enjoy it now, like going back to rewatch it. Still to this day, Tom Holland's always going to be my favourite. So if you want to know who's my favourite Spider-Man before anybody comes for me in the comments, it's obviously Tom Holland's. But this is very good as well. Like, as much as I love Toby's movies, once you go back and strip the nostalgia factor, a lot of things don't work. A lot of it is cringy, and a lot of it is not well explained enough, in my opinion, unless you knew the comics, or if you grew up watching cartoons like I did. Like, I used to watch all the Spider-Man cartoons growing up. So it makes a lot of sense. But for me, like, this version of Spider-Man is actually one of the better ones I've seen. Like, yeah, it's different, and obviously a lot of people have their issues. I still have my issues where, like, Andrew is an amazing Spider-Man, but when it came to Peter, he was just too good looking. He was just too cool to be Spider-Man. Yeah, you know, you could say the same about Tom, but for me, the reason why his Peter is too much cool is, like, he's an edgelord, he's skateboarding everywhere, you know, like, I know that's the take they were trying to do, and it was really cool, don't get me wrong, I really did enjoy that, but for me, necessarily, it was a bit too cool for Peter Parker. But the movie overall, I think it's just like a solid 8 out of 10. Mr. Woody, sorry, inside joke, but yeah, a solid 8 out of 10, and you know, I could dive more into like major, like the smaller plot points and things, but the major plot points are basically the Gwen Stacy relationship, which was handled really well. Emma and Andrew killed it. You know, they had a lot of sexual tension. They had a lot of the like, oh, I'm dating the guy that my father hates. You know, all of that sort of drama things. You know, just stereotypical drama things for like movies and shows, which made it really interesting and fun. And don't get me wrong, it was really good. Obviously, the Lizard was a great villain in my opinion. He was really complex and very complex and very misunderstood in a lot of ways. And he's not technically even a villain. Like, he's more of a scientist that was upset because he had lost a lot of things, and that's what Peter was. The only difference is one chose to go a certain way and another one chose to go the other way. You know, you gotta have that duality somewhere. And so, getting on to the bonus features, because I don't want to take too long with the video, because I don't want to sit here and bore you guys. The bonus features are quite cool. It dives into the backstory of why they wanted to make Peter more edgy, which gave me more of an appreciation for it. It's like they were trying to make it more modernized, and like what a geek and nerd used to be back when Spider-Man was originally created isn't the same definition as it is now. So they wanted to make him more of an outcast, make him more, well, as people would jokingly say, emo. And, you know, it was, I didn't have an issue with it. Like, it was still a great story. Aunt May and Uncle Ben was in here, was really good, and they delved into the family dynamic a lot more, especially within the behind the scenes and explaining how this, that, and the next. But also, the one thing before I do go fully into the bonus features, why the hell did they redo the quote? Like, they didn't do the proper quote. Like, they made a weird, different version of it, which I understand you don't want it to always be repetitive, but the newer version of that quote that they used in this movie made no fucking sense, and it just confused me a lot, if I'm going to be honest. It didn't make much sense, so that's my biggest issue with the movie. Other than that, it's a solid 8 out of 10. And the other bonus features is, you know, obviously going through the casting process, how they became, like, how they feel like these people were the best people that tested for it. They dived in how it's the same sort of, it was the same team that made the original 3 Spider-Men, well, some of them anyway, and how they were in the development of a 4th one, but it fell through it, and they decided they wanted to make a new take on the character, because every comic iteration throughout the years has had a different version of Peter. The core fundamentals are the same, but the way he looks, the way he acts differs between comic to comic. So I understand what they were going for. And that's one of the more interesting concepts of the bonus features in this Blu-ray. And I think that's about it, to be honest, because I've covered most of the main stuff, and I don't want to be taking up too much time, because it's been out for years, so not many people are going to be watching it for the necessary review in the sense of they want to know what it's like. They're going to be watching it because they want to know my opinion of it. So I have to do the annoying YouTuber thing. If you did like this video, hit that like button, hit the little subscribe button, and I shall see you guys in the next video.